Welcome, survivors, burnout community, and those just interested. It's Kelly Bupoltz, trainer, author, speaker, and your burnout prevention mentor. Burnout is not taboo. It's our reality in this chaotic, fast-paced world. But we're not going to let it drive the narrative to our stories. We're going to do something about it. So let's dig in. Are you dealing with a micromanager? It could be your boss, your leader, or it could be someone on your team that's micromanaging and redoing everything that you're working for. In this episode, we're going to be talking about how to deal with a micromanager. If you are the micromanager, that's going to be a future episode. So let's dig into why it's a problem. The biggest kicker and what we keep talking about in workforce energy management is that energy. A micromanager drains the energy. If you're just going to do the job or redo the job, then why have other people? And when I work with small businesses, I'll give them like 90 days to get out of that micromanagement mode with the right tools. Otherwise, you don't need that person because they're already doing their work. Do you see that flip frame of thinking, why am I paying this person if I'm just doing their job? Get away from micromanagement and you can see increased value because you're allowing that person to actually work. So that's the first one, is that it's an energy drainer. The second thing is productivity. If you have two people doing the same thing, that's not productive. You're just overpaying for the same job. The other thing is when you micromanage and be over responsible, you're making someone under responsible. So you're actually creating a poor performer problem. So the productivity cycle is basically broken at that point. And when we work on workflow or productivity optimization in this workforce energy management model, we look at these little factors like micromanagers, like ineffective pass-offs, double duty tasks, and it kind of cleans up your operation, and the spread is phenomenal because you start to see that energy regain. The other problem, and this is a bigger problem than you think, is you're actually driving results down. Because when you are getting micromanaged, that means that there's not clear, smart goals, that everyone involved does not know their role and what they own, that employees are not managing their time well because they're micromanaging something else that they shouldn't be doing, or they're spending more time on that than their actual job. In most cases that I see, micromanagement is usually happening because of past experiences or because technology is not being leveraged. So say I give you a task and I'm micromanaging you, it's because I don't have updates or information back from you. So how are we leveraging that technology so I don't have to keep bothering you for updates? Regular feedback loops. Does it go too long and then we get derailed or off trail and that's why they're micromanaging? And then that team accountability that pretty much in every program that I do, we work on increasing that trust and that team energy. So if you are being micromanaged, this results-oriented team is already dysfunctional, and this is where productivity and energy thrives. So signs that you might be dealing with a micromanager is that stifleness, right? It's feeling stuffy because someone's redoing your work, someone's looking over your back, someone's checking in more than they have to, and that makes you feel like there's a lack of trust, and that makes you feel like you don't want to innovate, you don't want to create, you don't want to go outside the parameters because it's so tight, and you're almost creating a psychological fear to try something new, to go off on your own, to suggest or voice problems. And the ripple effect of that can be huge because if you see something that the other team doesn't, you might not be speaking up, or you might actually have the right answer, the right way to do it, and you don't want to innovate that because of the micromanager involved. So the root cause of this, of the micromanager, and we'll get into the actual micromanager in a future episode, the real reason why this is happening is fear of failure. And this could be because they just have that fear naturally, or because in a previous experience, they allowed it to go too long and it failed. They lost control at some point, at some checkpoint, and it got derailed and they got blamed for it. So we all have those experiences with previous bosses, previous teammates that, didn't do their part and it ended up on your plate. So there could be some fear of failure or loss of control there. That might be a root cause of a micromanager. They might have lack of trust, not in you specifically, not personally, but lack of trust in the process, in the system, in the data. I would often actually see micromanagement go on in some of the outside departments in our manufacturing plants because they didn't trust the data in the system. And it didn't necessarily mean the machine operators putting in the data. It meant the system. Like our system was archaic and not updated often because it was expensive. And then it wasn't integrated in our other operational software. So it was hard to trust the data. So they had to micromanage the situation. And sometimes operators would see that as a personal attack, a lack of trust in them. But really, it was a system issue. Or do you have lack of trust in the leadership and the feedback they're giving or their reaction to change and innovation? So some of the leadership factors go into that. And then sometimes it's just a personal work style. We have some perfectionists, detailed-oriented people that need control. They want to see results. And check out some of my other videos in this, and I'll link one at the end. There's certain work styles that want the results. They want to do a good job, but it's coming off as a micromanager. If we aren't already linked up, make sure you connect in my newsletter on my website or out on this channel as we continue to dig in micromanagers, how to deal with your boss, how to deal with a difficult coworker, because this is such a big topic when I go into programs. Now, let's begin to talk about how we're going to flip this micromanager situation, because nothing is more draining than coming in and being micromanaged every day. Again, it's putting you into this state where you don't have autonomy, where you can't innovate, and that can be energy drainers. So how do you deal with micromanager, whether it's your boss up above you or your peers that are on the same level? The first thing I want you to do is identify their triggers. Now, I just went over some behaviors that you might be seeing. Is there not enough updates? Do they not trust the system and not so much the person? Do they not trust the leadership and it's coming off on you? Do they have a past experience where it's a fear of failure? So only certain projects, certain type of reports, certain type of initiatives trigger them. So I want you to observe and kind of think, when is the last time that they micromanaged me? What was going on? Was it the project? Was it the file that we were using? Was it the system? And really identify what is the trigger of their micromanagement. Because you do have micromanagers that will micromanage everything, and it will be very apparent. But then you have micromanagers that it's just that annoying thing that they do. That's because they're being triggered by something, usually from the past, usually by that loss of control. So observe the triggers, because then you're going to flip how you respond to it. And in doing this flipped response, you're going to build trust. And the more you do it, the more that you're going to groom their behavior and their response to that micromanagement, because you can only control your behaviors, right? So we need to start detaching that I can't do anything. Why try? You can actually groom your behaviors in response to theirs. And because of your new behaviors, they're going to have a new response. Isn't that pretty cool? We do not own their behaviors. We do not own their responses. We can't control anything that they do. But if you create an environment where they can start to trust you, where if they lose control to something you are doing and you do a good job and you deliver quality results on time, over time, they will trust that you do a good job. There are micromanagers that I have dealt with, and I've delivered and I've delivered and I delivered. And eventually in a meeting, they've said, "Oh, don't worry about it. Kelly's got it. I trust that she's going to get it done." And it was like a blown away moment, not because I was proud of my quality of work and delivering on time, because I was always doing that. I was proud of that because of all those responses to that micromanager that I did finally paid off, right? That they backed up and let me do my work that I was doing the whole time. But I groomed a response to them that was satisfactory, in which now they trust that I will get the job done. So here's some phrases that you can use with a micromanager to start building that trust. Because I think some of that's the hardest part, is what do I say to start building this trust? Here's a great example. I noticed that you are always seeking updates on X, spreadsheet, project, initiative. Would it help if I put information in the system before the meeting? Or would it help if I just gave you an update on Friday before the weekend so that you know where we're at? Do you see the shift in trust? They don't have to guess and assume and fill all that narrative with they're not doing it right. I'm going to let the checkpoint go too long and lose control. You're basically getting ahead of the game saying, I see that you like updates. Would it help if? And you fill the blank before all that assumption and story starts in their head. right? And I think a lot of conflict in the workforce can be diffused through conversation and more frequent checkpoints and updates. And in most cases, this can be done in your technology, but people have to use the system and they have to put the update in for the other person to know that information. So we identified their triggers. We're building trust in our response conversations. Just like I said, hey, you wanted some more updates. Would it help if? And then you provide that update more frequent or in whatever medium communication that they want. Then I want you to clarify expectations, because sometimes micromanagement comes from unclear goals. Like, I don't know who's doing what, so I'm just going to do it all. I don't know if they really understood the end result that we're looking for, so I'm just going to do it. So some of that comes from unclear expectations. So if you're in a meeting and it seems like it's unclear, or you're watching people's body language and they got that like confused look in their eyes, they got the eyebrow of like, I'm thinking, but I don't understand who owns what. You can take a moment and say, hey, before we leave this meeting, can I clear expectations of who's going to be doing what and what follow-up we're going to have for this? Again, it's just a moment of time, but it's going to clear up all these misconceptions and assumptions that are going to happen in the meantime. So here's a great example of how to propose that. I know details matter in this group. So just to clarify before we leave, the owners and the due dates that we're going to commit to, and then go into those owners and due dates. Because what you're doing is you're actually giving the power back to them, saying, I understand that details matter to you, so let me meet those needs. And it's a very understanding way to address this conflict. It's also a way to be proactive in a solution, managing the situation before it gets to a micromanagement mode. So sometimes we just kind of go with the flow, and we see it getting derailed into micromanagement, and we don't want to approach the situation. Maybe we're avoiding conflict, or we don't know what to say. So then it builds and builds, and then they just take over the project, they take over the situation, the tasks, the report, and now we're mad. But again, if we're grooming those responses, we can be proactive and get ahead of it. Hey, I know that details matter to this group. Can we just clarify owners and due dates before we leave this meeting? Boom. A couple comments here and there. I mean, it's 2-minute or less type of conversation. The fifth thing I want you to try with a micromanager is be able to adapt. I know that we have personal preference. We like to do things a certain way, but so do they. So where can you meet in the middle? Like I said, it can just be in the conversation or an update that you put in the system. Yeah, you know that the project's on time. Yes, you know these things, but they don't. So how can you meet their work style? If they want to be over controlling, can you give them a piece of control and then you take care of the rest? If they want those updates more frequent than you want to do, how much time does it take you to do the update? Because I bet you it's going to save you more time than the micromanagement situation that's happening. So we identified the triggers. We changed our response, in which they're going to change their response back over time, building that trust. We clarified expectations so everyone knows owners, due dates, and that's also going to build trust and clarity that the task is going to get done. We're going to manage proactively with proactive conversations. And then we're going to be adaptable. It doesn't mean that you have to meet them all the way to their work style, but you can have that conversation to meet them halfway. The key to managing a micromanager type of situation is understanding what's driving behind it, and then responding intentionally to regain that trust, regain that energy, and gain autonomy back.
I know you're not lazy. Most people in burnout are high performers, those serving others before themselves. Don't discount this step today, the action in which you focused on your self-growth. Piecing together the puzzle is half the journey. Rediscovering yourself, energy, and establishing new habits is the other. Do not underestimate the untapped inner strength inside you. Explore more resources on my website to move from zombie mode back to liveliness. See you soon.